Hey guys, Jay here. In this live class, we're going to look at IELTS Academic Writing Task 1, and we're going to look at probably the trickiest one, which is when you get a double graph, which, by the way, looks like this. So what are you supposed to do if this is what you are faced with on test day in the IELTS Academic? On the left-hand side, you'll see the bar graph. Serious injuries while distracted driving. On the right-hand side, you see a pie chart. Fatal crashes while distracted driving in percentages. Holy moly, what are we supposed to do? Well, first of all, you need to read the graph description because it'll explain in more detail what these graphs actually are showing. It's located on top of the graphs, and it's the first sentence in the box. It says, the graphs below show the number of serious injuries and fatalities resulting from driving while distracted in Canada by age group. So we've got two things there. Can you see them? The first one is number of serious injuries. That's the bar graph here. And fatalities, that's the pie chart here. Fine. In Canada by age group. You can't see the age group, but I'll show you that in a second. Now, what are we supposed to do on test day? Well, the instruction below the task description, or the graph description, really has three parts, or three instructions. It says summarize the information, select and report the main features, and make comparisons. So what you really need to do is you need to use a superstructure which does this. You need to summarize, you need to describe, and you need to compare. Again, you need to summarize, you need to describe, and you need to compare. What it's going to look like, your finished product, is something like this. You'll have your little summary here, which will be a single one or two sentences, okay? Then you'll have your description. Again, you'll have one or two sentences. I'm going to show you how to do these in detail in a minute. And down here you'll have your comparison, while this, in fact, for this one was 6 sentences. This is the beefy part, because there were six points of data, or 6 key features that I wanted to compare. So all up, what have we got? We've got 6, 8, about 10 sentences. It needs to make up at least 150 words. I think this one's about 156. Okay? Make sure you count it on test day just to be sure. Fine, so let's work out how to summarize. To summarize, which is this sentence here, all you need to do is take that first sentence from the box, and you need to rewrite this task description in your own words to say the exact same thing. This is what is called paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is when you take a sentence that you didn't write, and then you read it and you rewrite it in your own words to say the same thing. Okay? That's paraphrasing. That's how you start your IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. You rewrite or you paraphrase the task description, the graph description. Okay? So let's have a closer look at how I did this. So the sentence on top is the original sentence, and the sentence below is my sentence. So how did I paraphrase it or rewrite it? Well, the original said the graphs below. Mine says the bar and pie chart. Okay. Then I changed the verb. Their verb was show. My verb is represent. Represent, by the way, is a good verb. Another one could be illustrate. Exhibit is not a good one, and demonstrate is not a good one because they mean different things. So represent or illustrate are the best possible verbs to use. The number of serious injuries and fatalities resulting from driving, I wrote the number of people who were either seriously injured or killed while driving. Now, when you're rewriting and you're trying to think of different words or synonyms to use, maybe there isn't one. For example, with the phrase seriously injured, you couldn't say seriously wounded, for example, because the meaning is different. So what you need to do there is this. Let me show you. So what did I do? Because they wrote serious injuries, which is adjective, and then this is a plural noun, right? What did I do? I wrote seriously injured, which is different. This is adverb, adjective. Okay? So instead of changing the word, I changed the word form. Instead of saying serious injuries, I said seriously injured. And again, here I can use a synonym. They said fatalities. I said killed, people killed, which has the same meaning, but it's a different word. So you've got two options. You can change the word, but make sure it says the exact same thing, because wound and injury are different, right? Seriously injured is a phrase we use in English for car crashes, for example. You can't say seriously wounded. That's something completely different. Yeah? Same with if you're a fatality versus a victim. We use the word fatality for car crashes, for example, but we use the word victim when the person was killed by somebody else. So it has a completely different meaning, not completely, similar but different meaning. You need to make sure you're saying the exact same thing, either in different words or using different word forms. Cool. Next bit. So they said resulting from driving while distracted, and I said while driving as a result of being distracted. So I've used the same words, but I've used different word forms. Now here, they said in Canada by age group, and I said in Canada by age group. Why? Because there's really no other way to say this. The prepositions are the same, Canada's the same. Age group, perhaps I could have said age bracket or something like that. Fine. So what I want you to do now is pause the video 1 minute, rewrite this sentence in your own words to say the exact same thing. Please feel free to write your sentence into the comments below. Let me just remind you here. Pause. Cool. All right. Now we're going to move on to the description, because you need to describe. So here's mine. I said the number of serious injuries was highest among the Middle Ages and lowest at the extremities. The 20 to 34-year-old age group accounted for just over half of all deaths. So what you need to do is describe main trends or key features. Describe main trends or key features. In fact, a trend has to do with time. Now, our one didn't give us any time, so in fact, we're going to describe key features. But if your x-axis has time, you can describe, the increase over time and the decrease, whatever it is. So do this in 2 sentences and don't compare, because that comes next. So when I look at these, I need to describe, again, I'm going to say key features, not main trends. Fine, I'm going to describe the key features. So let's just look at the bar graph. What's a key feature here? What's a key feature? What sticks out in your mind the most when you look at the bar graph? For me, it's this age group here, 25 to 34-year-olds. They accounted for the highest number of serious injuries, right? And what also sticks out in my mind is that the 65-year-olds and the youngest people accounted for the lowest number of serious injuries. So I'm going to write a sentence that says something like 25 to 34-year-olds accounted for the highest number of serious injuries, while the young people and the oldest people accounted for the lowest number. That's my sentence. I'm not comparing. I'm just describing the key features of this one here. Please go ahead and write your single sentence. Write your single sentence and describe key features of this bar graph here in 1 minute. Cool. Now just next to that sentence, because we're still in the description, we now want to describe the pie chart. So forget the bar graph. Let's look at the pie chart now. Again, what sticks out in your mind? What's the most interesting feature? What are the key features here? Well, for me, I saw that the big green bit here, which is the 20 to 24-year-olds, and the yellow bit, in fact, that makes up over 50%. That makes up, in fact, 51% of all fatalities. So what I'm going to do here in one sentence is describe, I'm going to say the 20 to 34-year-olds, I'm going to collapse these two age categories into one, accounted for 51%. So again, I'm going to read you mine. The number of, this is the bar chart. The number of serious injuries was highest among the middle ages and lowest at the extremities. The 20 to 34-year-old age group accounted for just over half of all deaths. So please go ahead, in one sentence, describe the key features of this pie chart here. Cool. All right, no problem. Now we're up to the hardest bit here. This is where we need to compare. This is where you need to write sentences that have sort of, they're called compound sentences. It's when we join two sentences together, because you're going to describe something from the bar graph and you're going to compare it to something from the pie chart in a single sentence. So we're going to have subject, verb, object. Then we're going to use a coordinator, a conjunction, a connecting word, a linking word, and then we're going to have subject, verb, object related to the pie chart. This is where you really need to use your language skills. The other thing here is you need to start using some data. So first step is to choose logical categories. I'll talk you through that in a second. Then compare them. And you need to include numerical information. That includes the numbers, the percentages, maybe it'll be dollar signs, maybe it will be kilograms. So on test day, in the third section here, the comparison, you use the data. Cool. Right, let's have a look at here. First question you need to ask yourself is, what are you going to compare? Which categories will you compare? Because you have a few options. And if you make the wrong decision, well, that's no good. Because maybe you decide you're going to compare 15 and 9 to 19-year-olds with 20 to 24-year-olds. Well, that would be a stupid thing to do, because it's not a logical comparison. Why would you do that? Or maybe you're going to compare this one here with, I don't know, this one here. Well, that's arbitrary. It's not a logical comparison, because you're comparing 20 to 24-year-old injuries with what's this one, 50 to 64-year-old fatalities. No. The comparisons you're going to make are this. You're going to compare 15, 19-year-olds seriously injured with those who were fatally were killed. You're going to compare the 20 to 24-year-olds. You're going to compare the 25 to 34-year-olds. You're going to compare the orange to the orange. You're going to compare the red to the red. You're going to compare the blue to the blue, right? But then we need to go one step further, because fine, we've chosen the categories we're going to use to compare. But is that going to be a good structure? There's a second step here. We need to think about how we're going to order this, because we want to choose logical categories, but we also want a logical order. So let me show you what I was thinking here. First thing is, I'm going to start with the largest and go to the smallest, because that's often a logical way to do things. In which case, I'm going to compare this one. I'm going to start here with this one. Then I'm going to do the green one with the green one. Why? Because it looks to me like the second largest, or they're pretty similar, but that looks logical to me. Then I'm going to do orange with orange, because that looks like the number third largest here and third largest here, or close to. Maybe it's second and third, but that's fine. Next, I'm going to do the red one. Next, I'm going to do the light blue one, the 15 to 19-year-olds. And finally, my sixth comparison is going to be these 65 plus people here. So this is what my paragraph will look like, and let me show you it. So I wrote this. Sorry, that's a typographical error. It should say comparing the data. You need to be careful. Comparing the data, there were 30,437 seriously injured 25 to 34-year-olds. Here's my next subject, verb, object, and the same group, because I'm comparing the same group, made up 19% of the fatalities. Fine. Next sentence. 20 to 24-year-olds made up a smaller number of serious injuries, but accounted for the highest number of deaths at 32%. Now I move on to the 35 to 44-year-olds, and I said just over 25,000 35 to 44-year-olds were seriously injured while driving, and this group made up 18% of all fatal crashes. You can see how I'm comparing the age groups from seriously injured to fatalities. I said 17,874 55 to 64-year-olds were injured, and this age bracket suffered 15% of the fatalities. Those aged 65 and older were both the least likely to be seriously injured and killed at 15,728 and 8% respectively. Then my final sentence was actually a little bit different to what I told you. 15 to 19-year-olds followed a similar pattern with slightly higher serious injuries and 8% fatalities. Cool. That's tricky. That's tricky. Here's what I want you to do, broken down. I want you to pause the video. I want you to write each of these sentences into the comments below, because there's only one way to learn how to do this, and that's to actually do it. I want to see your 6 compound sentences. I'll give you, pause the video, give yourself about 6 to 10 minutes. Alright, hopefully you did that, because just for your interest, this is not theory, this is an applied science. You need to do it to learn it, because on test day, if you've done it, it will make it a hell of a lot easier. Once you've burnt those pathways into your brain, when you sit there on test day, you go, I remember E2 language and Jay taught me how to do this. What. Right. So let's recap what we've learned. Well, you need to do 3 things. You need to summarize, you need to describe key features, and you need to compare data, right? So this is what it's going to look like on test day. Just to repeat, here's your summary. You did this from the graph description. You rewrote the graph description in your own words. Then you described key features or main trends, depending on what you get on test day. And here is where you do the comparison. First, you have to select logical categories. Then you have to think about how you will order them. Then you go ahead and you look at all this data. Look at all these data. Data is plural. Look at all these data here. Percentage signs, numbers, and you'll notice here there's no numbers apart from the age group. You can use the x-axis in the description. Cool, guys. Hey, if you need any help with your IELTS, if you want some feedback on your writing, some tutorials from teachers like me, if you need access to good practice materials, in fact, if you just want a really streamlined course and you don't have to waste your time looking around YouTube at junk, check out this website here. Make yourself a free account, have a look around, and if you're feeling adventurous, you may want to upgrade and get the benefits of a paid package. Do check out e2language.com. Thanks for watching. My name's Jay. I hope that was helpful.